Hello! Last week I made a video discussing the bookshop Foils Books of the Year shortlist and made a little vlog about going to the big Foils bookshop in London to look at all of these books in person, and I got a lot of lovely comments of people who enjoyed that video and enjoyed the autumnal London scenes. And over the weekend the bookshop Waterstones announced their Books of the Year shortlist, so I thought, why not do another vlog, go along to the shop and look at the 15 books that they have listed for their Books of the Year, because they run it like almost like a book prize where they announce this shortlist. And although 15 books isn't such a shortlist, but they will eventually announce one of these books as their big book of the year. And they say that they're nominated by booksellers, although there are books of all different genres, and that seem very carefully calibrated for the reading public, so I wonder how much like marketing is involved in these decisions. But anyway, it's fun to go along to the bookshop and to look through these books in person and to consider if I want to get any of them as presents or to get as a present for myself to read if there are any books that I've been meaning to read. So I'm going to take you along to that experience while looking at some London scenes and getting a bit of lunch and show you a bit more of the falling leaves in London. And it's getting chillier out in the city, so I've got my warm cozy jumper on to go on this journey. I got the train from the area near where I live up to Waterloo Station, and right behind the station there's a fantastic old-style public library, but I got the train to here rather than straight to the bookshop, so I could have a wander and walk through the city up to Piccadilly. And I noticed near Waterloo there's a giant beautiful new mural of Paddington Bear, but the whole South Bank area is great to spend time in, and I've seen many events and readings and authors at the South Bank Centre. There's a whole bookshop that features books by authors that have recently appeared and talked at the South Bank Centre. But this whole area is gorgeous, and spending time along the Thames, and they've started setting up some Christmas stalls under the bridge and along the river. And on one side of Embankment Bridge, it's great because you can see so many iconic London sites like the London Eye, but then also the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben off in the distance, which were looking really misty that day. But then on the other side of the bridge there's the South Bank Centre with a Shard in the distance, but also you can see Waterloo Bridge and then St. Paul's off in the distance. And then on the other side there's Embankment Gardens, which is looking really autumnal, and you could see the colors of the leaves changing. And I walked from here up until Charing Cross Station, which is a really big, beautiful old station. And there's also a statue here dedicated to Oscar Wilde. And so I stopped near here at a Japanese udon place to get some yummy noodles in a warm broth and dumplings and read my book while people watching. There's a great old-style gay pub just off from Trafalgar Square, and Trafalgar Square itself is really impressive, and you can see Big Ben off in the distance, and they're setting up some Christmas stalls just outside the National Gallery. And nearby is Leicester Square with some statues in it, and I was here just last weekend at the Odeon for the Paddington in Peru premiere with my friend Anna James, and it was great to see all of the cast and the people who had worked on the film up on stage, and they had set up a lot of impressive displays, and there was a lot of excitement around this premiere. And I also got to meet a drag queen named Marmalade, who's on the current season of UK Drag Race, who made this really impressive Paddington-inspired gown, and under her hat is a sequined pile of marmalade sandwiches. It's a short walk from here over to Piccadilly Circus, where there's the giant Waterstones across multiple floors. I think it's one of the biggest bookshops in Europe, and I saw right away in the display window, there was their shortlist for their book of the year. But actually finding all of these books became much more of a scavenger hunt around the bookshop than I initially anticipated. But I loved looking in the display window. It was great to see some Paddingtons there, and to look at all of the new fiction. It's hard not to be distracted by all of it, and it was also great to see the Booker Prize shortlists there. But I spent a lot of time wandering around all the displays of the books and picking up different books and reading summaries of them and noticing some books that I've read recently, like it was great to see Glyph and Our Evenings, which I'm currently reading with my online book club, and to see the Joyce Carol Oates shelf of books and some other books I've read recently or that I want to read. There's a display of books for the new winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, but there are so many different sections to this bookshop across many different floors, and so I spent a good time wandering around, and it was great to see in the children's section a display of my friend Anna James' book. Though there was a display of the Books of the Year shortlist in the window, there wasn't one on the shop floor. There were separate displays for a number of the books scattered around, but I had to go to many different floors and really search around to track down all of the books, which was part of the fun of this whole journey. I think the biggest and most frequent displays were for Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, which is a novel I found excellent and very enjoyable to read. It's about two adult brothers who are grieving for their lost father and struggling in different relationships, but also about their uneasy connection with each other. There are many poignant and meaningful conversations in the story. There was also a beautiful display for Raising Hare by Chloe Dalton. This is an account of unexpectedly raising a leveret, which is a baby hare, during lockdown. It's said to be a feel-good story and very life-affirming, and a great read for fans of H is for Hawk, which is a memoir that I found so moving, so I'm sure I'd really enjoy this as well. Then there is the nonfiction title, The Siege by Ben Macintryre. This is a suspenseful book which recounts the true story of the storming of the Iranian embassy in 1980, recounting the week-long siege and rescue operation. The inside cover includes a great collage of images. I've heard great things about this author, and I got a copy of it a while ago, so I've been meaning to read this book. Colm Toibin writes such great characters, and I loved reading Long Island, which is a sequel to his novel Brooklyn. This follows Ailish as she experiences trouble in her marriage and returns to Ireland after receiving bad news. That's not a spoiler, that occurs in the very beginning. There she encounters people from her past and faces new challenges. It's a moving story, and it was wonderful to meet these characters again. I've never read Coco Mellors before, but I know she's a very popular author. Blue Sisters follows three siblings from different corners of the world who reunite in New York to mourn the loss of their fourth sister. It explores human nature, family, and love. 18 by Alice Loxton is a non-fiction book which gives a new way of considering history through 18 individuals when they were all 18 years old. She discusses famous royalty, explorers, writers, and entertainers such as Geoffrey Chaucer, Elizabeth Tudor before she became queen, and the actor Richard Burton. This sounds unique and like a lot of fun. Definitely one of the books of the year for me is James by Percival Everett, which relates the events of Mark Twain's Adventures of Huckleberry Finn from the character of Jim's perspective. And seeing this landscape through the escaped slave Jim gives an entirely new view of this society. It's a great adventure following Jim and Huck along the Mississippi River with many moving scenes and surprises. The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson is a true crime-fueled mystery thriller where 18-year-old Belle is determined to uncover the shocking truth about her missing mother while filming a documentary on the unsolved case. It follows one girl's search, but it's also about the terror in finding out who your family really is. Olivia Laing's The Garden Against Time combines history, horticulture, art and biography to tell the author's personal story of fostering a garden and discusses gardening's relationship to Western culture with references ranging from John Milton to Derek Jarman. Glorious Exploits is set in Sicily in 412 BC. This is a funny and moving novel about two locals and a bunch of captured Athenian soldiers staging two of Euripides' greatest tragedies in a quarry. It also won Waterstones Debut Fiction Prize this past summer. Asako Yuzuki's Japanese cult classic Butter follows the connection between a convicted serial killer who is also a famous chef and a young journalist who wants to learn the secrets of her gourmet cooking. I've not read this yet, but I've heard there are sumptuous descriptions of food in here, but it's a bit uneven as a novel. In Easy Wins by Anna Jones, the food author picks out 12 ingredients to elevate her meals, and there are many new recipes. I love looking through cookbooks and have many, though there's probably only a dozen recipes that I regularly make. So this is fun to flip through, but I probably don't need yet another cookbook. It was a real challenge to find Shakespeare's first folio, and I asked a bookseller where it's located. I was directed to the whole Shakespeare section that Waterstones have, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I was about to give up when I accidentally came across it on the ground floor. This presents abridged versions of Shakespeare's plays for young readers, so they can perform them themselves. There are beautiful illustrations throughout which are so vibrant and colorful. It'd make a great gift and an accessible way for young people to discover Shakespeare for the first time. I Am Rebel by Ross Montgomery is a children's novel that follows a good dog named Rebel who loves his simple life and the farm with his owner, Tom. But one day the war comes too close and Tom is determined to join the rebellion to defeat the king's men. But Rebel knows war is dangerous, and he will stop at nothing to save the human he loves. It sounds like a very sweet story. I also had a lot of trouble finding Cloudspotting for Beginners by writer Gavin Pretor-Pinney and illustrator William Grill, but I'm so glad I did because this children's book includes a lot of beautiful illustrations which relate the key facts and characteristics about each major cloud type. It was really fun to flip through, and it seems like a great way to get young people to look up at the sky rather than at their phones. So that was my journey around the bookshop, finding all of the books on the shortlist, and I had a good browse myself, but when I left, I noticed it was getting dark already. I stopped in at my favorite Japanese sweet shop, which is a few stores down from Waterstones, and they just have gorgeous looking desserts, and so I bought myself a matcha wafer as a treat. Going past Fortnum and Mason's, I saw they already have their windows decorated like an advent calendar, and it's always fun looking at their display windows. Then I walked down to Green Park, which ironically is turning brown as all of the leaves are changing, but it looks really beautiful, and so I had a good stroll through the park while eating my matcha wafer and noticing all the little critters running around. And then I got down to where there is Buckingham Palace, and even though I've gone past this many times, I can't help stopping and looking through the gates and like noticing the guards marching back and forth, even though I know it's just like a big tourist trap and like display, but I always enjoy looking at this landmark. And also it's fun to see in the distance like the London Eye, and so I walked down Buckingham Palace Road to get to Victoria Station and finally make my way home. But as it was getting darker, it was lovely to go across the bridge and to see Battersea Power Station all lit up. And I am back home. That was a much longer expedition and search around the bookshop than I'd originally intended. But of course, it's always a pleasure to have a wander around the city and a bookshop. And I did stop a couple of times to read some more from our evenings. So that was a really lovely trip, and I hope you enjoyed the journey. And I did buy a couple of books while I was at Waterstones. Now, if my father is watching, please look away because he has a birthday coming up. And so one of the books I got him from the list was The Garden Against Time, Olivia Laing's book, because he's a very keen gardener, and I think he'll really enjoy this kind of different way of looking at gardening through different examples from past gardens, both real and imagined, and through Olivia Laing's efforts to restore a garden. And I absolutely loved reading her book, The Lonely City. I thought it was so powerful and insightful, and yeah, I just really like the inside cover. So here's my Waterstones receipt. And I also bought, while I was there, the novel, the Uruguayan novel, Pink Slime, which I just read about recently on the Reader's Digest Books of the Year list, and just really liked the sound of this. And so while I was on the train home, I read the opening section from this book, and it's really creepy and atmospheric as it's describing this city which has become dilapidated because of a pandemic. And so, yeah, I'm be really keen to keep reading this book. But do let me know what you think of the Waterstones shortlist of books. If you've read any of these books, or if you're interested in reading any of them now, or getting any of them for gifts, because I think that's partly why the design of this list, that it's sort of intended for gifts like this. But it's worked, because yeah, I ended up getting one for my father. So so hopefully he'll like it. And but yeah, let me know which book you think should win this year, because as always with these lists that are made up of books of very different genres and forms, I don't know how they're going to pick a single book of the year from all these different titles. But it's a bit of a frivolous exercise, but a fun one to think about. So I've just had a notice on my phone that my battery is low, so I should probably stop. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.